What if the way you think about success has less to do with hard work and talent, and more to do with hidden patterns inside your mind? What if the path to fulfillment and achievement isn't just about goals, strategies, or willpower, but about unconscious forces that shape every decision you make, every fear you carry, and every limitation you believe is real? Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung didn't talk about success in the way modern culture does. They didn't create morning routines or productivity hacks. Instead, they explored the source of all human behavior, the psyche. They uncovered the deep mental, emotional, and symbolic patterns that silently determine how people live, act, and achieve, or fail. If you've ever felt stuck, sabotaged your progress, doubted your worth, or couldn't explain why you fear success as much as failure, Freud and Jung would tell you, there's a hidden script playing in your mind. It's ancient, emotional, and mostly unconscious. And until you bring it to the surface, it will quietly steer your life. Freud showed us that the unconscious mind is not some mysterious side note. It's the foundation. Most of what drives your decisions, especially the ones that make or break your success, comes from repressed memories, internalized authority figures, early childhood experiences, and unresolved emotional conflicts. These buried elements create patterns of avoidance, perfectionism, self-doubt, fear of exposure, and shame. He introduced concepts like defense mechanisms, which we use to protect ourselves from emotional pain, but which often become the very walls that trap us. Repression, denial, projection, these aren't just clinical terms. They're everyday experiences. When you ignore your need for rest because you equate productivity with worth, that's repression. When you think others are judging you, but it's really your inner critic talking, that's projection. Jung built on Freud's work and expanded it into realms of myth, meaning, and spiritual depth. He taught that beyond the personal unconscious lies the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of shared human experiences. From this realm arise archetypes, powerful symbols and roles that live inside you: the hero, the outcast, the creator, the judge. These aren't just characters in books or movies. They're energies you unconsciously act out, especially in moments of crisis, opportunity, or transformation. Success, according to Jung, isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. He called this process individuation, the unfolding of your true nature, the integration of the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow, the persona and the soul. Without this integration, your ambitions can turn hollow. You might achieve on the outside, but feel lost on the inside. Think about it. How many people reach their goals but still feel unfulfilled? How many pursue careers, relationships, and status symbols that look impressive but don't feel authentic? Freud and Jung would say, that's the cost of not knowing who you truly are. You're chasing external success while being internally disconnected. To understand the mindset of success through the lens of Freud and Jung is to understand the internal obstacles that most people don't see, the fears that wear disguises, the needs that become compulsions, the wounds that become ambition. For Freud, much of human behavior stems from the tension between our instinctual drives, especially the desire for pleasure and the avoidance of pain, and the restrictions placed on us by society. This conflict, often established early in childhood, creates internal pressure. We learn to perform, to please, to hide parts of ourselves just to survive emotionally. These strategies get results in the short term, but in the long term, they limit who we believe we can be. The child who was only praised when achieving becomes the adult who ties self-worth to performance. The one who was punished for expressing anger learns to suppress their assertiveness, and later avoids leadership roles. The one who was never seen or heard grows up believing success belongs to someone louder, bolder, more visible. These are the hidden principles, the unconscious rules we live by. Jung invites us to break these rules by becoming conscious of them, He believed that every block, every failure, every breakdown contains within it a symbol, an invitation to go deeper. That's why he placed such importance on dreams, synchronicities, and inner images, because they're not random. They're messages from the self, the deeper part of you that longs for wholeness. If you've ever had a dream where you were failing, falling, or running out of time, Jung would say, your unconscious is showing you something. Maybe you've placed too much value on outer achievement and neglected your inner world. Maybe you've denied your creative side, and now it's trying to emerge through your dreams. Maybe your fear of failure is a disguised fear of visibility, because success would require you to be truly seen. Freud would add that these dreams are not just symbolic, but expressions of unresolved tension. That the fear of failure may trace back to a moment you were shamed for trying. That procrastination might be a way to avoid the terror of not being good enough. That overworking might be a way to silence the deeper question, do I matter without achievement? Success, through their lens, becomes something more profound than goals and ambition. It becomes a psychological journey, a confrontation with yourself, a transformation of the unconscious material that sabotages your potential. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Your unconscious doesn't care about your goals. It cares about protection. It cares about avoiding pain, keeping you safe, maintaining what's familiar. So if success feels dangerous, if it would expose you, change you, or risk rejection, your unconscious will quietly resist it. You'll delay. You'll overthink. You'll make excuses. Not because you're lazy or weak, but because your unconscious is afraid. Freud said, most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Jung added, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. To shift your mindset toward real success, you have to step into this responsibility. You have to become aware of the hidden principles running your life. You have to face the shadow, the parts of you you've denied, ignored, or rejected. The anger, the envy, the insecurity, the fear, not to indulge them, but to integrate them. Because when you deny your shadow, it controls you. But when you face it, you gain access to your full energy. You reclaim the power you were spending on hiding, and that power can now fuel your success, not from fear, but from clarity. Jung believed that the goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. Not to become someone else, but to become all of who you are. That includes your ambition, your doubt, your passion, your wounds, your wisdom. All of it belongs. This wholeness is what creates true success. Not just the kind that looks good on the outside, but the kind that feels good on the inside. The kind that's aligned with your nature, your purpose, your deepest truth. You begin to realize that success is not something you chase. It's something you allow, something that emerges when your mind, emotions, and unconscious are aligned. When your goals are not based on proving your worth, but expressing your essence. Freud and Jung weren't business coaches. They were explorers of the human soul. But their insights have never been more relevant. In a world obsessed with achievement, they remind us that the real journey is inward, that the most powerful shifts don't happen in your schedule. They happen in your psyche. So the question becomes, are you willing to look inside? Are you willing to uncover the hidden beliefs that shape your mindset? Are you willing to confront the fears that block your path? Are you willing to meet your shadow and embrace it? Because if you are, something incredible happens. You stop chasing someone else's version of success. You stop living from fear and start living from truth. You stop performing and start becoming. This is where the real transformation begins. If you've ever wondered why success seems effortless for some people, while others struggle constantly, Freud and Jung would both urge you to look beyond surface behavior. They'd tell you that success isn't simply about what you do. It's about who you believe you are. And who you believe you are is often shaped by what you've repressed, rejected, or never been allowed to fully explore. Freud believed that much of our behavior is determined by unconscious forces, especially unresolved childhood conflicts. These hidden forces shape our inner world and create emotional habits that follow us into adulthood. You might believe you're choosing your career, your partner, your goals, but often you're repeating patterns, trying to resolve old wounds in new places, trying to get from the world what you didn't get as a child: validation, love, approval, or control. Jung expanded on this idea, showing that our drive for success is often tied to a deeper need to feel whole. He described a process called individuation, the journey toward becoming your true self, integrating both your conscious desires and unconscious drives. The reason many people fail to achieve lasting success isn't because they lack talent, but because their outer goals are disconnected from their inner truth. Imagine a person who climbs the ladder of success, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. They followed what culture defined as achievement, but inside, they feel lost, empty, or anxious. Jung would call this a crisis of meaning. Freud might say this person is experiencing the return of the repressed, an emotional reckoning with all the parts of themselves they ignored while chasing a socially approved version of success. To break free from this cycle, both thinkers would ask, what are the unconscious principles guiding your life? What hidden beliefs are shaping your definition of success? Are you motivated by joy or by fear of failure? Are you inspired by vision or haunted by the need to prove something? Freud believed that repression of desire creates neurosis, emotional suffering caused by denying what we really feel. You might have been taught that ambition is selfish, that wanting more is wrong, or that failure is shameful. So you internalize those beliefs. You suppress your drive. You become afraid to speak up, afraid to risk, afraid to dream. But repressed energy doesn't disappear. It mutates. It turns into anxiety, guilt, or burnout. Jung viewed this differently. He saw energy as archetypal, as part of a larger symbolic story unfolding within you. If you repress your inner warrior, you may become passive or indecisive. If you suppress your inner magician, you might struggle with creativity or vision. If your inner lover is denied, you may lose your sense of passion and aliveness. Success isn't about becoming someone else. It's about restoring balance between these archetypal forces. This is why so many people experience burnout or self-sabotage. Because their psyche is out of alignment. Their conscious goals conflict with their unconscious fears. Their drive for success is fueled by guilt, insecurity, or trauma, not by true calling. Freud would say this inner tension creates neurosis, patterns of thought and behavior that seem irrational but are really just expressions of unhealed pain. Jung would say these are symbols from the unconscious trying to guide you, that your anxiety is not just a symptom, it's a message. That your procrastination is not laziness, it's resistance to a life that doesn't match your soul. So how do you realign? It begins with radical honesty. You must be willing to examine your motives, not just what you want, but why you want it. Is your desire to succeed coming from a place of self-expression or self-protection? Are you building a life or a defense? Jung believed that every time we deny part of ourselves, we create a shadow, a psychological container for everything we think is unacceptable. But here's the paradox. Our shadow holds some of our greatest strengths. The confidence you suppress may be labeled arrogance. The ambition you hide may be disguised as humility. The voice you silence may carry the wisdom you need. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being fragmented. You stop wasting energy managing your image. And that energy becomes available for creation, for leadership, for bold action. Freud spoke about catharsis, the emotional release that comes from bringing unconscious material into awareness. When you stop pretending, when you tell the truth about what you feel, what you fear, what you need, you reclaim your power. You stop needing to impress. You start to connect with others, and more importantly, with yourself. Jung introduced the concept of the self, not just the ego, which is your conscious identity, but the larger totality of who you are. The self is the part of you that is already whole, already wise, already connected to purpose. The reason you suffer is not because you are broken, but because you are disconnected from this deeper part of yourself. So what does this have to do with success? Everything. Because true success is a byproduct of alignment. When your conscious mind and your unconscious are working together, when your shadow is integrated, when your actions come from your essence and not your ego, that's when success becomes not only sustainable, but meaningful. You're no longer chasing approval. You're expressing your truth. You're no longer reacting from fear. You're responding from clarity. You're no longer repeating old patterns. You're creating something new. This is where the mindset of success transforms. It becomes less about effort and more about energy, less about performance and more about presence, less about force and more about flow. Freud and Jung didn't give us formulas, they gave us awareness. They gave us language for the inner world. They gave us maps for navigating the chaos within. And once you learn to navigate that inner chaos, you stop fearing it. You stop being ruled by old voices. You stop shrinking to fit into boxes that were never made for you. You begin to trust your instincts. You begin to follow your intuition. You begin to live from the inside out. This is the ultimate principle that shapes success. Not discipline, not hustle, not sacrifice, but integration. The ability to unite your thoughts, emotions, desires, and deeper self into one coherent direction. And here's the most powerful truth Freud and Jung would want you to know. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you are beneath the roles, the rules, the fears. You are not just your ego. You are not your trauma. You are not your limitations. You are a self becoming conscious. And that is the most powerful mindset you can ever have. True success begins the moment you choose to confront yourself, not with criticism, but with compassion. Freud and Jung never asked us to be perfect. They asked us to be conscious, to see the mechanisms running our lives and to reclaim our power by becoming active participants in our own transformation. And that transformation doesn't come through force, it comes through awareness. Freud taught us that suppressed emotions don't disappear. They fester, and eventually they surface through anxiety, sabotage, or even illness. Jung taught us that these emotional disturbances are not problems to be fixed, but signals to be understood. They are symbolic cries for integration, parts of ourselves begging to be seen, heard, and honored. When your success is built on repression, it costs you authenticity. When it's built on fear, it costs you joy. When it's built on comparison, it costs you peace. But when it's built on self-knowledge, it becomes freedom. Freud gave us the tools to explore the past. Jung gave us the vision to imagine the future. Together, they offer a mirror and a map. Imagine what changes when you no longer fear your own mind. When you begin to interpret your behaviors not as flaws, but as feedback. When a lack of motivation becomes an invitation to examine what's truly meaningful to you. When imposter syndrome becomes a call to heal the inner child who never felt enough. When procrastination reveals the hidden perfectionism that says, if I don't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. Jung believed that what we resist not only persists, it grows stronger. If you resist your fear, it grows. If you resist your anger, it leaks out in passive ways. If you resist your sadness, it turns numb. But when you allow space for these feelings, not to indulge them, but to understand them, they become your teachers. Your energy stops being drained by resistance and begins to flow with awareness. Freud's idea of the superego, the internal critic shaped by parents, teachers, and cultural expectations, is still one of the most powerful forces acting on your mindset. That voice that says, you're not doing enough, you're behind, you'll fail. That's not truth. That's programming. And until you question it, it runs your life. Jung offered an antidote. He believed that the self, the deep center of your being, is always guiding you through dreams, intuition, and synchronicities. That inner sense you get when something just feels right or wrong isn't random. It's the deeper part of you trying to align your outer life with your inner truth. So how do you live from that alignment? First, by slowing down. You cannot hear the voice of yourself when you are caught in constant noise, comparison, and performance. Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." That means creating time to reflect, to journal, to notice what energizes you and what drains you, to pay attention to the patterns that repeat. Because repetition is the unconscious speaking. Next, by making space for your inner contradictions. You can want success and fear it. You can crave love and push it away. You can feel confident and insecure in the same moment. These paradoxes are not signs of weakness. They are signs of being human. Freud and Jung remind us that wholeness doesn't come from choosing one part of yourself and rejecting the rest. It comes from learning how to hold complexity with care. Then, by learning the language of your dreams. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Jung called them messages from the self. When you dream of being lost, failing, running, or flying, these are not meaningless images. They are metaphors your psyche uses to process and reveal what's happening below the surface. The more you learn to decode them, the more clarity you gain about what's truly driving you. Also, by confronting your inherited beliefs. Jung said we don't just inherit physical traits, we inherit emotional and psychological patterns from our families and cultures. Beliefs like success must come through struggle, money is bad, I have to do it alone, or I don't belong, are often not your own. They're inherited. Once you identify them, you have the power to release or transform them, and finally, by connecting your success to something larger than the ego. Freud and Jung didn't frame fulfillment around status or image. They framed it around meaning. Jung especially emphasized that a life without meaning leads to depression, addiction, and despair. Your success must connect to your soul, or it will never satisfy you. It must serve something beyond just appearance. It must express something real. This is what makes the mindset of success unshakable. It is not built on proving, performing, or pleasing. It is built on knowing, healing, and becoming. It is rooted in self-awareness, fueled by purpose, and guided by the deeper wisdom within you. Freud and Jung both believed in the power of becoming conscious, not to fix yourself, but to free yourself. To live from truth, not trauma. From presence, not programming, and when you do that, success stops being a finish line. It becomes a state of being, a reflection of your inner harmony, a side effect of living your truth. You stop asking, what do I need to do to succeed? And you start asking, what part of me needs to be seen, healed, or integrated so I can naturally grow into my potential? Because success is not something you chase. It's something you align with. It emerges when who you are on the inside matches how you live on the outside. So let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not behind. You are unfolding. You are not too late. You are right on time for your own awakening. Freud gave us the courage to face the past. Jung gave us the vision to build the future. And together they gave us the tools to rewrite our story. From fear to freedom. From fragmentation to wholeness. From performance to purpose. This is the real mindset of success. And it begins in you.